kill the sound there. Just clicked on the channel. So I think I am up and running here. Yeah, indeed I am. So I will get this link out one more time via X. And I will put that out in. That should be good enough for now. I have it on the Patreon page already. So let's see if we get some people in here, and I'll wait a little bit here to kind of run in here. Yeah, indeed I am. So make sure the volume is down. Let me know how the audio sounds if you guys would, just to make sure. I never trust myself anymore now. Fingers crossed for Halloween. Yeah. What are you guys, anybody have any kids or anybody out trick-or-treating, or do you guys buy candy or what? Because it might be washed out for some portions of Western Washington. Yeah, you can make some nice costumes and try to take advantage of the rain or whatnot, but it should be interesting. Audio good, 5x5. Copy that. Yeah, pretty interesting satellite imagery here with that deep low. I mean, cinnamon roll out there, and it's got this atmospheric river. You can even see it on the infrared satellite imagery. It's got the tap all the way back towards the Western Pacific Ocean. So that's what's gearing up. So as you can see, it's not going to be long here before this precipitation starts here across much of the Pacific Northwest. And we're going to be in this boundary, this battleground between some very cold air across the Gulf of Alaska as we go on and through next week, and some much more mild air. And we're going to be right there at the boundary where we could have some windstorm potential here. It doesn't look like a huge storm coming in here, but there are some systems trying to develop on that boundary and move right into the Pacific Northwest. The caveat there is that since they are weaker systems, but they're taking a better approach, they are going to be a little bit less, the consistency of the system. I mean, the confidence in the system is on the lower side there, but we do have the potential for some strong winds, and I'll show you some of that here as we go through the video tonight. The lightning expert, thanks for the question. Any high winds for the Puget Sound region? So there is the chance for it, and I'll show you what's showing up here. I was just talking about that here, and if we put this into motion, you'll see that's the low pressure across the Gulf of Alaska. And if I keep that going, you'll see how that big boundary, that very cold air across the Gulf of Alaska, and then the warmer air just to the south points right here at the Pacific Northwest. So we have a couple weak systems that may take very favorable tracks here across the region. There's the first one as we go through very early Saturday morning, and then we remain on that boundary. And as we go through next week, this one right here, we got to watch that one as well. And that's only, 90, 100 hours out as we go through next Monday. Both of those bring some fairly windy conditions here across the Pacific Northwest. So yeah, when you're hanging out in a boundary like that, stretched all the way back down north of Hawaii, you got to really watch out for system development along that boundary. So there is the potential for it. And I'll show you what that looks like here on the map. It doesn't look like anything too crazy, but you see that system kind of develop at the last second, and this deepening as it comes onshore. If that ends up deepening a bit more, man, it doesn't take much with that perfect track. And that's a pretty powerful pressure rise as that moves across the region. So really got to watch that. And really, this has the potential to bring windy conditions anywhere from Vancouver Island down to the Oregon coast right now. We don't know exactly where that's going to set up or how strong this low is going to be. And then watch this system right there. It doesn't look like much. You're like, oh, it's only a 996 millibar low. But with that perfect track across Western Washington, that's a pretty powerful pressure gradient and a decent pressure rise behind it, at least as it moves through pretty quickly, and then additional storms through the extended. So yeah, we do have some active weather coming up for sure. Okay, I'll check up on the chat here. The second low, yeah, there's wind with both lows there. The second one was actually stronger. Bear Gulch fire. Yeah, it would be kind of, I'm curious to see if some of these fires out there are still smoldering. Actually, I thought I saw a picture on X of one of them that still was here across the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, I mean, these rains here really put an end to the fire season, no doubt. But again, they may smolder for a while and whatnot. But yeah, the days of the big fire and the big smoke here across the region are definitely done. Might go out to the beach to dig some clams as long as it's not blowing 60-mile-per-hour winds. Yeah, a lot of trees losing their leaves out here too. A lot of leaves in the gutters and stuff. That's a good reminder also. Get out there and do a last minute cleaning of your gutters, including on your house or, out in front of your house in the street, because a lot of leaves down and a lot of rain coming tomorrow. Dirk Doppler in the house, more wind the better. I don't need power. That's an interesting take. Sunday morning probably would be okay. In fact, let's check with the latest. I want to see what the latest North American model says, because the NAM wasn't showing that windy of a system on Saturday. But if we go on and through Friday, there's the atmospheric river pouring in. And actually, this has only gone through hour 29. So this is updating as we go. We'll watch that one come in. Let's look at the high resolution model. And we'll actually do this. We'll look at wind, because I want to kind of see what's going on here. Some of these high resolution models have not been doing too bad. So there's the atmospheric river as we go through tomorrow. And then there's the system right there. So the European was showing that GFS as well. And you can kind of see how it's a small, compact low. That one brings some wind across the area there. And so as we go through Saturday, you're doing okay. Sunday, it might be a little blustery out there, but it's hard to see on that one. So let's go ahead and look at the European. In fact, we'll just do this. We're going to duplicate, and we're going to go to European, and we're going to go to 800 meter wind speed, and we're going to just to kind of see for that regatta on Lake Union. So there's Saturday's system. You can see, again, those low pressure systems, those late breaking ones, you got to watch. Those deepening lows moving quickly can really bring some strong pressure rises through the area. And then as you go on in through Sunday, let's check out Sunday morning. Not too bad on the day Sunday. Any lightning? That's a good question as well. Let's do this. Since you put on a lightning flash density potential, so let's scroll through here. As we go on in towards, we might have to get in the wake of one of these systems. Doesn't show too much here over the next few days. Mainly lots of rain and some wind potential as well, but you can't rule out maybe a strike or two. You can kind of see that. There's a little bit of that activity showing up Saturday afternoon. That would be in the wake of that system, but no widespread lightning. Not like what we got last weekend as far as lightning is concerned. Yeah, that's what we're looking at as well. On Saturday morning, probably the best chance. And they're talking about this system right there. See that one? This development here, this system, that is what is spinning up on this boundary right there. So here's Saturday morning. See this big time boundary, this very cold air across the Gulf of Alaska and much warmer air down here. This is the atmospheric river pushing into the Pacific Northwest. And this is where we're watching for that next system to develop and move towards the Washington coastline. Some of the models earlier, like the North American, was showing it windier for the Oregon coast. So we're still trying to figure things out on that. Late November fantasy forecast. Yeah, why not? Let's take a look at it. Let's go to artificial intelligence. So this will go out. Well, we'll have to go to the European weekly. So we'll just do this and we'll go to European and we will go to weeklies in the control run and we'll take a look at, let's just go ahead and go through this. So this would be surface pressure maps 1 day at a time. That would be Saturday morning system right there. Let's scroll off into the extended a little bit more. We're going to go all the way towards Thanksgiving and scroll out there and just going to see what it shows. So there we are. We start to head off in towards Thanksgiving right there. Yeah, I mean, pretty typical of November. Storm systems, frontal systems moving through. And it is the rainiest time of the year here for the region. And look at that, kind of a ridge building up over the region there. Who knows? We'll have to see if there is anything to that. We'll watch it on through the extended, but there is something at the end of November, kind of interesting. But you can see we would be pretty active through the month of November, which is pretty typical here for the region. If you have a lot of trees and you're blocking and you're not getting a lot of solar energy and you do have one of those weather stations, it's best to get the power boost. So that'll help out because, yeah, we don't get a lot of sun here in the winter. If you're in this direct sunlight, I've had 2 of these going in direct sunlight all for the last like 2.5 years now, and they've both done fine. But if you have a lot of trees and you're not getting any sunlight, then you can run out of battery. Somebody mentioning hurricane category, I see, or what is that? Let's see. Oh yeah, there's no high end to that. You just don't need a category 6 as far as hurricanes are concerned. I mean, the damage is just incredible at the Category 5. I mean, you're not really adding much to it to put a Category 6 in there. You'd probably just be fear mongering even more and whatnot. But a Category 5 is scary enough as it is. And it'll do plenty of damage. I mean, if you're hit by a Category 5, you can pretty much consider all things possible, like your home being swept away and things like that, and severe structural damage. Even concrete structures can be compromised. Yeah, you just, I mean, Category 5 is strong enough. It's just like, I don't know what you just don't need it, is basically what it boils down to. Western Washington weather in the house. GFS failed on Kane. Kane? 300 people in the chat. Welcome, everybody. Click like if you would to get the word out to people. Just doing an initial look at the atmospheric river for tomorrow, kind of keeping everybody up to date on the situation here. We do have some wind potential as well. So with this atmospheric river, look at this 18Z European is hot off the presses. You can see that pushing into the Pacific Northwest. There would be Saturday system right there. This little wrinkle there in this boundary, very warm, moist air to the south, very cold air aloft up here across the Gulf of Alaska, steering this atmospheric river into the Pacific Northwest. So there's Saturday system right there. And then it had this next wrinkle in the boundary right there. That windstorm right there could bring a punch across the region as well. We really got to watch these late breaking waves, because a lot of times the models don't do great with just how fast these pressure drops occur. And sometimes they come in a bit more fast and furious and with the stronger pressure gradient, and you can really get struck with some strong winds, and they can be a bit of a surprise. So yeah, 1-2 punch coming up here, and we got additional systems as we scroll on in through next week as well. Fun stuff. It is November, the most active month of the season really here as far as rainfall is concerned. Southeast Alaska, Friday Harbor in the house. I am nameless. Yeah, that's a good question as well. Let me do this. This is something you can look at. So this was updated every month on Monday. The last one here was October 27th. And you can see where we are currently. So you can drop down here and you can see, yeah, technically the waters there across the equatorial Pacific, Niña 3.4, are in La Niña conditions. It's not a strong La Niña. It's still just weak right now. And they do all kinds of cool stuff, like they tell you the sea surface temperature anomalies, how much they've departed over the last 4 weeks. And again, a larger view there over the last 4 weeks. You can kind of see some of that cooling there across the Gulf of Alaska, the sea surface temperatures. And they do all kinds of stuff. They show the subsurface temperature, and you can kind of see that cold pool out there. That is what La Nina is doing, and it's got that cold water out there. So that is why La Nina is in charge right now. And if we can go through all kinds of stuff here, we'll go down. And you can look all the way back. They have it back to 2013. You can go back to all the way to 1950 there also. So, yeah, it looks like we are going to be in La Nina conditions probably at least through the December, January time period. And then as you get off in towards February, it starts to show itself as a neutral. And then we even have El Nino conditions starting to arise a bit more. Kind of typical there. You don't hang out in La Nina forever. Eventually an El Nino will come, and maybe it'll come next year. Oh yeah, that's something I was going to go over as well. So first, I want to show you Whistler. So this is a temperature cross section. The top of this chart here is 39,000 feet. And the surface here is down where, Whistler is. You're somewhere near 5,000 in the 4,000 foot range or so, 4,000 to 5,000 feet. And you can see what the atmospheric river is right there on Friday. And then you can see that freezing level start to get closer to the surface. And then you can see by the time you go on in through Saturday afternoon, Saturday night, you start to get some below freezing temperatures there for Whistler. But it is a different story there for Stampede Pass. As you can see, this is the freezing line. Look as this atmospheric river is coming in. The freezing level's up towards 10,000 feet. You can get snow generally about 1,000 foot lower than what the freezing level says there. depending on precipitation rate, evaporative cooling and things like that. But there's the atmospheric river. We cool down a bit after that, but still not enough to really bring a lot of snowfall. Actually, Stampede Pass, why is it showing up here at 31 feet? Let's go ahead and get off that and go to Snoqualmie or something. We'll do Snoqualmie Pass. There you go. So you might get some snowfall as you go on in through Saturday night, Sunday morning. You could get a little bit of snowfall down towards Snoqualmie Pass, but as you can see, it's probably going to be just above freezing and probably not too big of a deal, all things considered. And if we take a look at Whistler there, you can also see the snow will be flying as we go through Friday night for portions of Whistler. Pretty good ensemble agreement on that as well. If we take a look at Paradise, for example, though, not nearly as much. Maybe some snow showing up as we go through Monday night and on in through Tuesday morning, but not great ensemble agreement on that yet either. Strong El Nino next year. Nobody knows right now how that's going to unfold. Yep, don't give up your dream. Meteorologist, good profession. There's a lot of different things you can do with that degree. 1996 or 2008. Yes, that indeed would be an epic winter. I remember both of those winters quite well. The 96 winter was absolutely wild. Huge amount of freezing rain. I mean, it was so incredible. We had this atmospheric river moving in, and it was still like 29 degrees at my house on Kent East Hill, and we were getting freezing rain in places where flooding. We were getting landslides. There was tons of snow on the ground. It was just an absolutely wild time. Yeah, Portland, Oregon. You got that terrain feature off to the east of Columbia River Gorge, which allows cold air when it seeps back down into places like the Columbia Basin, eastern Oregon. Then it can funnel back through that sea level gap. Brings out that very shallow cold air there, which freezes the surface. And you bring one of these warm Pacific systems up over that chilly air, and you can get some really wicked ice storms, Portland, Oregon. Ladysmith. Remind me where that is. I'm not sure where Ladysmith is. I've not heard that before. Leon Eby. I was going to Green River, and I was at the school when the inauguration day storm hit in 1993. One of the scariest times of my life, including all storm chasing. Our power's out for 5 days, and yeah, I remember for weeks after the storm, people having their cars being towed away. And I mean, just crushed by trees. You could see branches all caught up in the cars, and just flatbeds with cars and trucks that had just been destroyed by the amount of falling trees. Just absolutely crazy. It's the first time I'd ever seen healthy big pine trees just getting snapped and broken and falling. And I was witnessing them do that on the campus. And it was like, how are we going to get out of here? This is never going to happen. And it took us hours to get off the campus. They kept having to clear trees that were falling. And it was absolutely crazy. Just south of Nanaimo. Okay, so what are we looking for there? No warnings. Well, you might get some rain and you might get some wind, but again, there's not going to be any wind advisories up yet. In fact, let me look at this. So if we go to Seattle, right now they do have some wind advisories up for some of the Northwest Interior, and this is a good call because you're probably going to get some strong winds towards Quileute. You can see Bellingham is in that. And also these hydrologic outlooks. Locally 5+ inches, some of the Olympic Peninsula there. Central Washington Cascades, Cocomish River is the only river currently forecast to enter minor flood stage on Saturday. So we're still in the early portion of the season where we're not dealing with a whole bunch of snow in the mountains that's going to get melted. And this atmospheric river is dumping decent amounts of rainfall, but it's not something that's going to cause huge flooding early in the season. You could get some nuisance flooding and then some urban small stream flooding as well. Drains are clogged. There's a lot of leaves that just fell off all these trees. So you could get that kind of stuff going on as well. Washington Weather Chasers in the house. Welcome. Oh, remember for second tier support. Yeah, that we were talking about that a little bit. That's sneaky low on Saturday. There's also the next one. So you can kind of see how it's on the artificial intelligence here on the wells as well. It's not as high resolution a model, so it might be having a little bit more trouble picking that up, but you can see these fast moving lows, you can get these really strong pressure rises. So it might not look like much as it comes across as a 1000 millibar low or a 998, but the pressure rise behind that can really bring some very strong winds into the interior. So there's the first one there. And then the European shows another one after. The artificial intelligence doesn't show that developing and coming into the Pacific Northwest, really just kind of shows some rain into Oregon. But yeah, on the European, though, you can see it right there. Man, if this thing were to develop a little bit further off and deepen a bit more, that is really a nasty track that could move across the region. Strong pressurized behind it. Then this one was actually looks even windier on some of the ensemble members right there. So again, couple bullets flying our way here in the Pacific Northwest. Got to really watch those two. And that's what Ben's talking about, Washington weather chasers. Yeah, I remember that storm pretty well. January 13th, 2021, had a 58 mile per hour gust here at my house. Kind of, again, a late breaking wave right off the coastline there, and it really hammered the area. January 13th, 2021, had 61 mile per hour gusts in Federal Way, 270,000 people out of power, Puget Sound Energy. Yeah, that here, I think I had it. Yeah, I'll show that here again since we're talking about it. 400 people in the chat. Welcome everybody. Click like and get the word out. There is that system. You can kind of see this is forming on that boundary of the very cold air across the Gulf of Alaska. And where is it? There we go. So this is Saturday morning storm right there. You're looking at 500 millibars, 18,000 feet. Look at the very cold air across the Gulf of Alaska. And then you can see the much warmer air associated with the atmospheric river. Along that boundary, you really got to watch out for these sneaky systems. And you can just see the little bit of a wrinkle in it right there. That's the system for Saturday. And then it wants to do that again right there. This system right there, you got to watch that for Monday. So maybe a 1-2 punch, who knows? But at the same time, both of these, with these weak systems, and if they don't develop just like the models show, they could bring very little wind or maybe just, blustery conditions, but they could bring some substantial blows as well. So kind of fun to watch this here as we go through the weekend. Again, very cold air across the Gulf of Alaska. And in fact, we can take another view of that. Let's do this. Let's go to Pacific and we'll go to Gulf of Alaska. And you can see that as well, just how much cold air is out there across the Gulf of Alaska. So that is what is driving this system right here. It's forming right along that boundary. And that boundary is, the difference there between that very warm and cold air is where the jet stream is going to be. And that's where the mid-latitude cyclone development, where you'll get it. And if we scroll off into the future a little bit more, there's that Monday system right there. Small, compact, low, but just really brings a big blow. That in the European showed 57 miles per hour for SeaTac. But again, this is 100 hours out, and this is going to be ebbing and flowing in strength and probably position and whatnot. And I wouldn't be surprised if this was gone on the next run. But we really got to watch that Saturday system, because the European, once it locks onto something like that and it continues to show the system, I think that it's usually doing a pretty good job with that, and it's probably going to bring some strong winds. Monday, Wednesday, favorable negative tides along the coast in the evening. Will waves be high or average? That's another good point here. Let's do this. So you'll see that we do get a bump in the waves as we go through tomorrow night. And then that system does bring some increased wave action. Those are pretty good. What is that? 16 feet westerly, right up against the Washington coast. And then as we go on in towards next week, again, depending on those individual systems, we might get some bigger wave action next week as well. So what you're talking about there, Monday through Wednesday. So there is Monday. Doesn't look too bad on Monday, but again, it's the Pacific Ocean. So I don't like telling people that wave action isn't going to be too crazy, but it does look pretty relaxed there on Tuesday. Then it starts to pick up on the day Wednesday. By Thursday, you're bringing some big waves back up to the coastline. Might have to go chase one of those days. Yeah, a lot of times Patreon is better. It's just, a better way to support creators that have it. It's YouTube's got a lot of overhead and stuff, so I don't like to chase people off from, you know, you got to help YouTube out as well. They make this all possible, but Patreon allows creators to keep quite a bit. Yeah, that bomb cyclone was pretty crazy. I'm not sure of your location there, Silverdale, so I'm not sure if there's going to be a wind advisory associated with that, but there's a possibility for it. I don't know how much they're even talking about it. I have not been reading the National Weather Service Seattle discussions like I used to. Let's do this. I'm just kind of curious to see if they're mentioning it. I know what I think about it, and I know there is potential with it, but let's see. They mentioned the high snow levels, interior Friday, brief break, boom, 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 north coast. Dun, 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 dun. They don't mention the system specifically. Let's see if sometimes they mention it down here in the marine. They're not really mentioning it too much, but they do mention that windy, gusty period with the atmospheric river. So that's technically correct. So it covers the bases there, but they're really not diving into this individual system too much because, like I said, late breaking waves like this, small compact lows, the confidence is low on any given area on just who's going to get the strongest winds with that. Right now in the lower elevations, we don't see any cold air for lower elevation snowfall just yet. It's fairly rare in November. It can happen, but we're still in October right now. So really the earliest you really get Arctic outbreaks here in the region is mid-November. And that's pretty darn right rare in its own right. And then once you get on in towards December, it does start to pick up though. Yeah, and that's another way to support the channel is if you can't afford monthly and stuff like that, whatever videos and creators you like on YouTube, if you watch their video all the way through, it gets the creator more money and it gets them more exposure. So those watch time hours, those add up, and that's how they base ad revenue on, and stuff like that helps the creator as well. Aqua Chunk in the house. 450 people in the chat. Welcome, everybody. We have been talking about this atmospheric river coming up. Check out this representation on the satellite imagery. Look at that thing. That's a beauty. It's going to bring some big-time rainfall with it tomorrow, and I'm going to chop that down a little bit. We're going to go to mid-level, see what this looks like. Sometimes you got to refresh after you do that. There you go. It looks like a monster out there, right? Looks like a cinnamon roll out there. Gulf of Alaska. Look at this. That thing stretch all the way back into the Pacific Ocean. It's so wild. Hawaiian Islands down there. But yeah, we got a lot of rainfall coming in here. And I got the Doppler radar overlaid. Washington Weather Chasers, thanks for the generosity, sir. What do you think the probability is of us getting a major windstorm in the next 5 years? I've given up on, I can't believe that we haven't had one. We're going on 19 years now since we got the Hanukkah Eve storm. And that was the last big region-wide windstorm. Some people could argue the December 2014 storm, it brought one of the highest gusts ever to Portland International Airport, but it really wasn't that big of a deal. It was a decent windstorm, but it wasn't the really big blow that we can get here. And sometimes those storms happen, like it happened in 93, Inauguration Day storm. Then we got the 1995 storm. Another huge windstorm. We had a big one in 1999. Then we had a big one in 2006. And really since 2006, we have not had a signature classic huge windstorm. So if I had to bet in the next 5 years, would we get one? I would probably put the odds at, we're overdue. So I would think probably 60% if I had to just randomly guess. But yeah, it's something that I'm always searching for. And sometimes it looks like the model runs are starting to agree on something, and then it never gets that close. So I'm kind of curious to see what the next big windstorm, how it would look in the models, how far out the models would pick it up, and how well they would do, like the GFS versus the European versus the Canadian. And then as they got into the high resolution mode and started getting closer, I'm very curious to see how the models will handle it. Because I remember Cliff Mass did something about, they reenacted the Columbus Day storm on the UW WRF, and it actually threw a big low into the Oregon coast. Actually, not as big as the Columbus Day storm was, but it didn't spin it up the coastline as much, and it buried that low right into the Oregon coast. So I'm kind of wondering, hey, would the models, how would they handle something like the Columbus Day storm now? So something I'm always thinking about. So that's an excellent question from Ben there. Leon Ebby, thank you for all you do. I'm a skyborne spotter for 15 years from Auburn and just starting to study to go back to school for meteorology. Would love any quick tips on path to a degree. Yeah, Green River is an awesome way to do it. George Camolo up there runs, or at least he's helps run the aviation department, and that's where I got my dispatch license. I took a bunch of air traffic control classes. I took pilot classes. I took, and a lot of them are associated with weather and meteorology and stuff too. So Green River is a really good way to do that. You can get a helicopter license there. You can do all kinds of stuff. It's a good school for that. So I would do stuff like that, especially if you're in Auburn. I mean, Green River is a really great way to do that. But if you want to do meteorology, I mean, there's other good schools as well. There's schools really all over the place. Like the UW is a really good program. There's programs in Oklahoma. There's online, you do all kinds of stuff. The University of Hawaii has a really good meteorology program also, atmospheric sciences. Yeah, I'm hoping we get the big one this year. I mean, I know you almost hesitate when you say that, because if we get a huge windstorm like that with, we've got a lot more people here now, and we've got people building out into the suburbs. So, there might be loss of life. So it's not like you don't want to be rooting for something like that. But at the same time, you, as a meteorologist, or as, a huge weather junkie working for Alaska Airlines and running this channel, I'd really be interested to see what is going to come. But again, I don't have any control over that. So when it comes, I'll just do my best to kind of warn people and just be in awe of that storm system as it arrives. There's some lightning starting to show up back behind the frontal system there also. Yeah, the math is a real tough part for meteorology for a lot of people. I took math off and on, and I finished a lot of it, but I never actually pieced together my degree. I went to several different schools, and I was like doing different things, and I was going for air traffic control. Then I was going to be a meteorologist and eventually try to work at the National Weather Service. And then I found out about aircraft dispatching. And so I ended up going into that, and I did that through Green River. And so, yeah, but going to school can kind of help you out with those things. It opens up new possibilities and new careers. Any cold air in the extended forecast for Eastern Washington, Spokane? Well, I didn't see any when we looked at the European Weekly. Where did I put that one? So let's do 500 millibar heights, and we're going to do this. And you can see the trough, over the Gulf of Alaska. This is a 7-day running total of 500 millibar heights. This would be southwest flow. We wouldn't be in any threat of any cold air as we go through November 11th there. We scroll off into the future a little bit more. What you would want to see is this trough a little bit closer, kind of carved out right across the region here. And again, you don't see it. You got that southwest flow below normal heights. Then we get some ridging here, and that's not the look either. Maybe. Okay, so there's something. Maybe at the very, I don't know, as we go through December at some point, we're bound to flirt with it at some point. But yeah, you're looking so far off in the forecast. You're looking almost 1,000 hours out there. But yeah, we don't see any major threat right now. Shanti, thanks for the generosity. Mark Stewart in the house. There he is. He must have just wrapped up dinner and he got here to the chat just in time. It's a running storm chaser joke. Yeah, we saw Ben and Jonathan Poley out there chasing, and my signal was bad, so I ordered Starlink, and I couldn't stay on the beach that Ben and Jonathan were at. The wind might have been a little bit stronger there, but I had to go a little bit further south to get a better cell phone signal. I was like, to heck with this. I'm done with my live stream dropping off in the middle of a chase, and so I don't want to do that anymore. So the Starlink should actually be here tomorrow. So from here on out, I should have Starlink, and I should be able to live stream for wherever I want. So looking forward to that. Second dinner. Ron Dog in the house. Thank you, sir, for the generosity. How much snow would a Cat 5 atmospheric river dump if it was a lowland snow event? That is always that was kind of what was going on in 1996 for some locations. We had Arctic air and we had an atmospheric river kind of moving into that air mass. Really interesting stuff back then. I mean, I lived in Kent East Hill at that time also, and I was getting, it changed over from snow back to freezing rain, but some areas across Seattle were getting huge amounts of snow. I remember going to my friend's house in north of Seattle, and he had like 2 feet of snow on the ground in 1996 December. So some of that stuff was going on, and that can happen. And, you know, it can happen across the higher terrain as well, especially, you know, those atmospheric rivers on the north sides of them. You can cool things down. Like I was showing earlier, Whistler, check it out. As you go through Friday night, look at Whistler building up some of that snow. This is in centimeters, but still, that's a lot. I mean, you're looking at, what is that, almost a foot of snowfall, 40 centimeters. Yeah, we're waiting for the next storm chase. I'm trying to always think of what next to chase, and I don't know if I was going to go out and try to find some of these waves or wind or do some river flooding, but it doesn't look like it's going to be too crazy as far as flooding is concerned. Mill Creek got 2 feet. It was awesome. Keith Evans in the house. Chad Limestone, Western Washington Weather had a great stream. Oh, was he on live streaming right before this? Okay. Checking out the chat here. Let's see. Oh, yeah, the chase on Saturday. Yeah, we had 4 rounds of thunderstorms. We had 1 as we were driving out there. Then we had like 3 while we were there. We were at Cape Disappointment watching the waves. Lightning was striking right in front of us, cloud to ground, and it was pretty wild. And we had an interesting character getting out of the car and screaming at the top of his lungs at the thunderstorm. And yeah, he was taking his shirt off and everything. So pretty wild time. No hurricanes for us. Nope. When people refer to winter of 96, it's 96, 97. It was right at the end of December of 1996. The lightning expert, what would you expect for Everett in this AR event? So, oh, we can look at that as well. Let's go. Type in the airport code for Everett and let's take a look, because there's going to be some rain shadowing. But yeah, look at that. The control run is showing. Control run's actually lower than the ensemble mean. You do have a chance for an inch in a 24-hour period, though. That's not bad. So that's that atmospheric river right there, and that's for Painfield. That's Everett. Let's drop down towards. Let's do Hoquiam just for the heck of it. Look at that Hoquiam, 1.5 inches ensemble mean. Chehalis up over an inch on the ensemble mean. Crystal Mountain, check that out, 2 inches of precipitation. And if we duplicate that and we go to ensemble and we go to 24-hour total snow, you can see not much of that is falling as snowfall, Crystal Mountain. So it's not going to be great out there. It is still just late October, early November. So it's not like you're ruining a great snowpack or anything like that just yet. But there is the potential for a little bit of snow bouncing back as we go through, or Monday night, it looks like. Hurricane force wind anywhere. Well, it's not impossible, because this system here, I mean, what does it show? It shows max 44 knots. So gust swath, if I put that through, you'd probably have to go up across Southeast Alaska or Haida Gwaii. On the 18Z, it had 50 or 42 miles per hour for Seattle. So if we zoom in a little bit more, let's go Pacific Northwest, max 73 gusts. That's probably across like the highest terrain of the Olympic Mountains. But watch this next system though. Look at that compact low right into the Oregon coast. And look at Tacoma, Olympia, Seattle. 57 for Seattle. Are you kidding me with that little low moving through there? Kind of interesting look there. 52 for Everett. I mean, so there's some pretty strong winds associated with that. But again, compact lows like that, that's going to change like 15 times by the time we get towards that system rolling in here. Tracy Colbert, welcome to Basic Channel Support. Thank you. 450 people in the chat. Ball lightning right next to me outside my house and blow my... Yeah, I've seen people mention ball lightning. It's supposedly a really rare occurrence. I've never seen it. That's because the terrain feature, the terrain is so high out there. I should try to get that video on. I wonder if I could get that video. Yeah, that was an excellent winter for Mount Baker. That broke Mount Rainier's record snowfall. A G1 level event. I'm surprised Mark's not talking about that. Getting a little toasty here. I'm going to take off this sweatshirt. Yeah, watch out for those sneaker waves, you guys. Some of those videos you run into on YouTube of those sneaker waves are pretty wild. How much does anybody know how much snow is at Paradise Mount or Paradise right now? You can see Paradise drops down below freezing once you get towards Saturday night. There's Mark. G1 is weak sauce, especially with this moon. So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at the rainfall. Let's scroll through some of these here and we'll get out towards the, let's look at the European. So this is 6 days out, 144 hours, 2 inches for Seattle. And you can see the lesser amounts. But once you get across some of the panhandle, some of the higher terrain, you're getting up over an inch there. The Rocky Mountains of BC, not bad. But again, with these atmospheric rivers and whatnot, and these systems moving in, it's definitely going to favor Cascades West, as you can see. Some of the North Cascades get a pretty big amount, shows up over 5 inches. I see 6 to 8, 13 inches, so somewhere in that vicinity. So yeah, it might not be that great for Paradise on tomorrow. As you can see, as you're going through the day on Friday, nah, that's not going to be falling as snow. Or snow levels are going to be above that. Talking up 8,000 feet maybe for at least a time. Trevor Carsley in the house. Gators for life. Green River Gators. Yeah, it can be hard getting precipitation out there into the Idaho Panhandle for with these atmospheric rivers. It definitely can be. There's our atmospheric river. So let's see, what did the 18Z show? It shows it raining plain as day there for the Seattle Metro. Portland Metro starts between 5 and 8. So that's going to be really close to getting them for the trick-or-treaters. Oh yeah, I was thinking about this. Is trick-or-treating a big deal in Canada? Yeah, Matthew Fab was a Green River alumni. $450 people in the chat still. Click thumbs up and it gets the word out to more people. But yeah, places like Salem, Eugene, you should be okay trick-or-treating wise. And you can see for Spokane as well. Doing good. Pendleton, Bend, trick-or-treaters rejoice. Seattle, sorry. Hoquiam, Quileute, Everett, Snohomish County, Arlington, Bellingham, Whidbey Island. Looks like you're going to be getting rain. Okay, the NAM is running right now, so I want to check out this system on Saturday morning. There it goes. Now it's starting to show it. See, that's not a bad gradient right there. Because you're looking at 10 millibars there from what, almost Port Townsend to Kelso. That's not a bad, and it's a quick moving low too. So the pressure, look at the pressure rise behind that. That's what I mean when I talk about pressure rise. Look at that thing develop. Boom. It's lowering as it comes inland. 1,000 millibar low. And then look at the pressure rise behind that. So yeah, we're getting more confidence in this being a windy system, which now begs the question, what do the wind speeds look like when you bring that kind of a low across? Because that was pretty interesting there. And we're going to zoom in a bit here because we know that low is coming. And also tomorrow is going to be gusty as well. Picking up in the morning, northwest interior, Washington coast, straight to Georgia. Still getting some east winds through the Stampede Gap there as well. Then we watch for that next wrinkle. Where is it? There she goes. Starts to get windy as we go through Saturday morning, Oregon coast. Cape D is going to be windy. And a pretty good westerly surge down Whidbey Island, straight to Juan de Fuca towards Whidbey Island also as we go through Saturday afternoon. It'll be pretty brisk there across the Cascades. Some pretty good winds rolling in there also. Now let's look at Gus swath. There goes that low. What do we got? 47 for Seattle. That's nothing to sneeze at. Showing some South King County, Pierce County, 48 miles per hour or so as well. 48.50. Been pretty windy on the coast there also. Maybe I'll have to go check that out. We'll see how tomorrow goes. But that's a pretty good blow in the Puget Sound. I'll show you a big gradient. That pressure change is kind of stark. Yeah, once you start getting, I mean, sometimes just the strength of the cyclone and the actual pressure gradient itself is strong enough to generate very strong winds when you're only getting a modest pressure rise, like 2 millibars an hour or something like that. But when you get these late breaking waves, the biggest impact usually is the pressure rise. So if we go, let's watch that low come in. There it goes. So now where are we here? So this is 21Z. We're about 1,007 millibars at SeaTac or so. 1 hour pressure rise of, I mean, come on, there's 1,008, 1,010. So that's a 3 millibar pressure rise in 1 hour. And that's almost a 4 millibar pressure rise there on the afternoon Saturday. So that's definitely, that supports gusts getting up towards 50 miles per hour for sure. So yeah, watch your barometers Saturday. Get out you got your Tempest, you got your Davis, you got your grandma's barometer on the wall. Watch the barometer. It's going to fall during the day. And then as Saturday goes, you'll see that sucker just rise back up. Look at that. Look at that high just come back in there as you go through Sunday morning. Big time pressure swing. So you'll get to test, you know, you talk about people with their trick knees and they get headaches because the pressure falls and whatnot. Let's see what people get from this. Washington weather chasers, 48 miles per hour in Skunk Alley. No way. Washington weather. Every time I see you guys both post, I think it's the same. Okay, that's the chasers there. Westport. Okay, let's look at that. Somebody keeps asking about Westport. Westport's right. You're talking 50. So it's going to be breezy on Saturday morning. Mark asks, why are the big winds going south of Victoria? Well, I'll show you exactly why that is the case. So if we scroll on through here, remember on the north side of these lows, you're not getting much in the way of wind. So if we look at this, there's Victoria right there. You're not getting any pressure gradient. The wind is going to be on the south side of that low. So it's going to track right up across. You'll get some gusty winds as the pressure rises and whatnot, but the best pressure rise is going to come surging up the sound there. That's why some of those gusts could potentially get into the upper 40s, maybe towards 50 miles per hour. But yeah, when the low tracks right over you, if you're on the north side of that low, you're not going to get those big winds. And you'll really see that here. If you go to surface wind, 80-meter wind speed. As this moves in, look at this. You got northerlies on the north side of that low pressure system right there. See the northerlies there? But the southerlies on the south side of that are pretty strong. So that's the reason for that. Grandma's barometer is the best. Yeah, it's go ahead and set the little gold needle there. You set the gold needle and then you can kind of watch the barometer fall or rise. Are there new fires? Washington and Oregon. Apple air quality map is showing up. Those are prescribed burns. So it's that time of the year where you don't really worry about the fire having to spread, or the fire's not going to be spreading a bunch. So it should be just prescribed burns as far as I understand. Yeah, Mark just mentioned it too there. Yeah, down in California, we're still it's that time of year where you can get big fires all the way on in through the winter months in California. You get Santa Ana winds that can really dry things out. Are they doing prescribed burns by Blewett? Human barometers. Aunt Meg. Bill's a human barometer. And again, if you're just joining, we're waiting for this to roll in. You can see that thing already moving into southeast Alaska, western BC. That's our atmospheric river. And look at that thing just stretch all the way back across the Pacific Ocean. In fact, if we do this, let's do this. Himawari. You can see that atmospheric river all the way back. What do you want to name this? I forget what these islands are all of a sudden. Now I'm drawing a blank. I know that, but I can't think of it. Here's Japan right here. So these are stretched this atmospheric river is stretched all the way back across the western Pacific Ocean. Fun stuff. I'm sure somebody knows. God, what was it? I forget. I'm drawing a blank. Will I be streaming now until Saturday afternoon? I will not, but I will do a briefing tomorrow. Is that midway? So they are prescribed burns there by Blewett Pass. Okay. Yeah, it's always a catch-22 because even if you go clean up the forest, you're removing stuff from the forest ground. Then you allow the dirt and whatever is left growing there to dry out even quicker. So it's always a catch-22. Even if you clean the forest, you're setting up for drier conditions in the long run. If you clear that stuff off, obviously that you're not going to burn as much, but then you make the ecosystem even worse for the long term. So you just can never win. You almost just have to accept that there are going to be fires, but at the same time, you don't want a huge firestorm rolling through a bunch of people's houses out in the middle of nowhere or whatever, on a hillside. So it's just a constant battle. Okay, Midway. Sounds good. Guam? Maybe it was Guam. Himawari satellite. Look, you can all the way down towards Antarctica there. But yeah, here we are. There's our storm system. Mean looking. You can see the air mass look at things too. The red and the blues there. Look at that cold air just spilling out into the Gulf of Alaska. Much warmer air. So you see why we've got this strong storm there. Big clash of air masses, much warmer subtropical air to the south. Very cold air. And you can see the cold air cumulus makes for that unstable atmosphere. You get the lapse rate, where the higher you go in the atmosphere, the colder the air gets. Which is typically the case, but the air is cold enough where you get that convection firing up. Look at that cold air just stretching across the Aleutian Islands. The Great Coastal Gale of '07, that was a really nasty storm. That was a prolonged windstorm. So that one was big time. Somebody asked about Vancouver. Yeah, there's a lot of rain coming in here. There's going to be some rain shadowing typical locations, but yeah, there's a lot of rain rolling in. In fact, let's look at that a little bit closer. Let's go to Pacific Northwest. So you can kind of see that as we go. This is Saturday morning right there. You can see kind of like Everett gets a little bit less versus like Seattle. And usually the further south you go, it's not too big of a difference right now, but this is rain shadowing. Big amounts across the Olympics. You get some downsloping, some compressional heating there, and you don't get as much precipitation in the leeward side of the Olympic Mountains there. And you can see as we go through Sunday, you can kind of still see that rain shadowing effect. Picks back up once it gets to the Cascades, though. Yeah, that 96 ice storm was no joke. There were trees bent over down into the road when I lived out in Kent. I'm always hoping for snow in the lowlands. I will be pulling for it. I wish I could control that. I'm definitely down for it. When is the heaviest rain? That's a good question as well. Let's look at 6-hour precipitation and type. Actually, let's do this. So let's back this up. You also see when the rain starts there. It starts for the Northwest Washington coast as we go through Friday. It's already just pouring on Vancouver Island. You see that come across in Nanaimo, Vancouver, BC. Look, the Olympics getting pounded as we go through. This is 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Trick-or-treaters will be out and about or just starting off, and it's already raining for Seattle. 7, 8. So right as the trick-or-treaters are out, looks like it's going to start raining for Portland as well. Now, depending on where you are, you can kind of see Seattle, for example, looks like between 7, 8, 9, 10, probably the heaviest rain falling across the region there, or best 6-hour totals, I should say. Convergent zone activity as we go through Saturday night, Snohomish County. You know, I don't really do snow predictions too much. It's when I talk about snow predictions and stuff, that's really just kind of a novelty. There's no way to predict that. I know how many systems we're going to have rolling in here. We'll probably get between 1 and 3 chances at snow as we go through this year. And there's always a chance for more substantial storms or even more than that. But for the most part, trying to guess snow amounts is just like flipping a coin. Even in an El Nino year, you can get decent amounts of snowfall. La Nina years, you tend to get more. In La Nina years, you tend to get some every single time at SeaTac. That's historically true. In El Nino years, you will go through periods where you will get nothing for the entire season. So we have a decent chance of getting at least some for some of the lowland elevations for sure. Puget Sound Storm Watch in the house. So yeah, that's what we're watching. And let's take a look at the HER one more time here. Does it show? It does show that compact low. So virtually all the models have that compact low moving across the region. Just a little bit of some differences there. And I didn't check this out yet. Let's go to Pacific Northwest. 0Z HER. So that's the 01. Let's go to 0Z. Shows 40 for Seattle. 44 for Everett. Pretty strong winds down the strait there as well. 46 for Bellingham. Yeah, February 2019, I wouldn't complain about that. So you can see Seattle National Weather Service has some hydrologic outlooks. Wind advisories are up. Some gale warnings. We'll check out Portland, just on the coast. It's looking pretty good across Medford, Oregon, for example. Not much of a chance for precipitation, very low. Pendleton, Eastern Oregon looks fine also for the trick-or-treaters tomorrow. And I don't know where they're getting this. I don't know why they keep showing the chances here for Spokane on the Halloween evening forecast. I mean, I don't know. Let's take a look at the North American model. We'll look at precipitation. Go to 6 hour. We're scrolling through tomorrow. There's nothing. There's nothing coming for Spokane tomorrow. They've been showing that for a couple days now. I don't know why they keep doing it. But it does not look like it's going to be raining for Spokane, for Pendleton. I mean, even on the North American model, it does not show it raining for Portland during trick-or-treat time as well. And it even holds it off till around 6 o'clock for Seattle. So, yeah. Saturday, the peak. So Friday, the peak for precipitation, most likely. Saturday, the peak for wind initially. But there is the chance on in through next week with that next sneaky low trying to move in here. So yeah, Spokane, Boise. I mean, Boise doesn't get really anything out of this system at all. Aberdeen, yeah, you're starting off. I mean, it's probably going to be raining for the trick-or-treaters, I would imagine, in Aberdeen. Right there, there's 5. Looks like it will be raining, yes. Yeah, you can just go throw darts at a dartboard and try to pick what kind of snowfall amounts you're going to get. And plus, you're given locations. People get different amounts in SeaTac versus the Des Moines Pier versus Everett and the waterfront versus back up towards Monroe, Highway 2. You know, there's people live in so many different places, and the terrain features are just, they control everything here. And you can get different systems, bring different snow potential for different areas, and trying to predict snowfall for a given area. I mean, what would I even start with? Would I predict snow for downtown Seattle? Would it be SeaTac? Would it be for Everett? Portland? You know, people live too many different locations. And again, sometimes the difference between 200-300 feet elevation in and around Western Washington, Western Oregon, anywhere in the region, you can have huge differences in snowfall amounts. High winds in Vancouver. It's possible on Saturday. It's possible. So as that low moves in, if it moves in a little bit further north, then of course that is going to be a problem and it will expose more areas to wind. So you can see that low tracking over the region right there across the Olympic Peninsula, right into southwest BC. You're almost talking about an 8 millibar pressure gradient. Oh, yeah. I mean, if this thing comes in and if this is just a couple millibars deeper, man, you could get 50 mile per hour gusts for Seattle, Olympia, Tacoma, Everett. Yes, Rarded, Western Washington is wild geology-wise and geography. Thanks for the kind words, everybody. 450 people in the chat. Camino Island, you're going to get rain. You're going to get some wind. Oh, yeah. When do the king tides start? Wasn't that November? Let me check it out here. So I think it's what, November 5th through 7th? That's already coming up here, isn't it? Wow. I almost forgot all about that. Then there's another set of king tides, December 4th through 6th, and then January 1st through 6th. If anybody knows any different, let me know. Bremlo Biscuits, welcome. Thanks for the info and your time. Thanks for supporting the channel. Yeah, 4th and so okay. So let's do this. Not quite a repeat of last weekend. Probably not as strong for much of the look. I don't even want to say that though. It's going to be windy again this weekend. This is going to be back-to-back Saturdays with some good wind. That's what it's starting to look like. And we're getting a pretty good amount of rainfall. Probably not as much lightning though. Okay, so I want to look at this. Let's go on in through. How far does this go out? So that's on November 3rd. That's close. I mean, whoa, that's November 5th, though. Yeah, we could get some interesting stuff here. Okay. That's November 5th, right there at the end of the run. So let's take a look at the wave action. Where was it? Where was I? There it goes. So that's November 5th right there. Some wave action does start to arrive, and on the 6th as well. So maybe we'll get some of that wave action a little bit early. But again, it doesn't have to be on the exact days for the king tides because it can be. Let's do this. So some of those king tides looks like it peaks on, yes, I mean the 6th and the 7th during high tide are huge tides as well. So yeah, this is, if this happens on the 6th, that is going to be problematic because those are big waves. Those are big waves. Look at the maximum individual wave height. So yeah, that could be a problem. That is going to be definitely something to watch as we go through next weekend. Now it's making me want to look at my work schedule to see when I go back to work next. I'm going to take a look here at my schedule to see if I'm working at that time. I work on the 8th. Okay, so maybe I'll be going out on the 6th and 7th. We'll see how that goes. Would be fun to see an analysis of the 1880 Storm King. Yes, that was definitely the king of storms around here. And really intense winds into Portland, and the low pressure moves somewhere right across northwest Oregon. Huge amounts of snowfall, over 4 feet on the ground, some places up over 6 feet on the ground across western Washington, down towards sea level. Just an absolute incredible storm. Wave chase and then dinner, or you just bring a thermos, bring some dinner in the car, and we'll go set up at Cape Disappointment and watch the logs get rolled onto the roadway there. Lightning Expert member for 5 months. Thanks for your continued support, Lightning Expert. I forget. I'll have to look it up again, but Wolf Reed used to have a write-up on it, and now that's kind of gone away. His website went away, so I have to bring that up. Somebody could bring that up in the Wayback Machine, but it was a very potent storm. That's the thing. I remember there's tales about the Pacific Northwest back in the 1800s, back in the 1900s, that Pacific Northwest gets mild winters. Low elevation snowfall is rare, but that's only true until it's not. Because we definitely can get severe winters down low here. They're just pretty rare, but they do happen. Like 2008 was just absolutely wild. 2019, February was wild. I remember some really good ones. February 1989 was just absolutely insane. 1990 December was insane. You know, we've gotten some really good winters here. November 1985. You go back in history too, 1968, 69, 1950, 1916. Natalie Whale Chaser, Cape Disappointment is just a very fun place to be with big waves roll in. There's a bounce back that comes off the cliffs, and a lot of times that bounce back will come down and it'll hit the wave coming in and make these incredible wave formations, and it's just really crazy. And sometimes when the waves are big enough and the tides are high enough, it starts to move the driftwood and it can push up towards the parking lot and just do all kinds of crazy stuff. But there's better than that along some of the Oregon coast too. Like Shore Acres is really good. I've never been there on a big wave day yet though. Ryan Voltalainen in the house. Yeah, I don't know. What is it? Is it cool to call them king tides or is it astronomical tides? What do people want to call them these days? I don't know. I don't care. I'll call them whatever. Clopatus waves. That's right. You sent me an email about that. Clapatus? Pressure change over a rapid period is usually wind speed is going to be the biggest player with that. But yeah, there's some, if you really want to get started in meteorology, I would just recommend buying a Meteorology 101, like a textbook, and just buying it and reading it. And of course, checking back your daily weather videos, and I'll go over a lot of that stuff as you go as well. But if you understand that, then you'll come back here and you'll enjoy the channel even more. Claputi. Okay. King tides will still reign supreme and most common among regular community. The king tides. Authoritarian tides. Let's call them authoritarian tides from now on. I'm just kidding, you guys. Okay, yeah, so we have king tides coming up first week of November. Actually, so this is next week. King tides are coming next week, and we have big wave potential during that time frame. 500 people in the chat. Welcome, everybody. If you click thumbs up, it gets the word out to more people. Look at this beast of a storm out there. That's going to start pumping this subtropical air back into the Pacific Northwest. Look at that precipitable water as we go into tomorrow. Get your rain jackets ready. It's probably going to hold off to the evening for places like Seattle, but the further you are north and west, the earlier it's going to start. Portland might be okay. Pendleton, Bend, Spokane, Eugene, Salem. You're going to be fine for trick-or-treating tomorrow. And those of you just joining, we're also watching a couple windstorm potential here. This little wrinkle right there doesn't look like much, but watch that little wrinkle kind of move right up into Western Washington. And then we do it again maybe next week, right there. And maybe we'll have another deep blowout over the Pacific Ocean here just in time for the king tides. Get out there on the coastline and have some fun with that. Was that really a 955 millibar low in 1880? My goodness. Pure insanity, folks. And I was mentioning this at the beginning of the video. This is what we see on this infrared satellite imagery. So if I click here, that's what we're looking at. See all that cold air spilling out over the Gulf of Alaska? Warm subtropical air out in front. That's the atmospheric river. That's what we're looking at here. If we put that into motion, along this boundary, you really got to watch for storm development. Mid-latitude cyclones, those sneaky low-pressure systems. The one moving through Saturday morning is right there. That one is looking like it's going to pack a bit of a punch. And then we have, again, we're right along that boundary at 18,000 feet. You can see it there, another mid-latitude cyclone. Now, if I look up at 30,000 feet, you'll still kind of see that boundary, but you can see the differences there in the colder air across the Gulf of Alaska and a little bit warmer air off to the south. But it's not as stark as when you go to 500 millibars or 18,000 feet, and then you go to 10,000 millibars or 700 millibars, 10,000 feet. Sorry, I'm confusing myself here. And then you go to 5,000 feet, and you can see it yet again. Then you go to 2,500 feet, and again, you can still see it. What does next week look like with the wind? So that is, let's take a look here. So we're going to go to surface wind, 100 meters. So if we go into next week, there's Saturday's system. Then we have the potential for another system on Monday right there up into Western Washington. And then look at that storm out over the Pacific Ocean. And that's going to coincide with the king tides. Are you kidding me? That's a big wave maker out there. That could get really wild as we get there next week. Maybe Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, some big waves on the coastline. Fun stuff. Alaska flight still flying tonight, or are they grounded? I'm not I heard that about the air traffic control. I have not been working the last couple of days, so I'm not up to date with that information just yet. But yeah, that's becoming a problem because, air traffic controllers, they're it's a pretty stressful job and you got a lot of responsibility. And if you're not paying them, who can really be that upset with them when they don't want to come into work if they're not getting a paycheck? Super old barometer. Yeah, bust those barometers out. You're going to want to watch your barometer fall and then rise as we go through the day Saturday. No, big windstorm, big mid-latitude cyclone. That's it out here. So if we look at pressure, look at that. Triple barreled low, kind of a triple barrel, maybe double barreled, but you can kind of see that's a pretty broad low pressure center, but that is going to do some nice wave generation. You want to do some wave watching, next week is the time. We'll scroll out into next week here and take a look at that low pressure center. There it goes. Look at that bad boy out there. Big waves off and on. That's November 6th when there would be huge tides along the coastline. That could get really crazy. I mean, my goodness. Pineapple pie. Pineapple Express. So I'll scroll back to the precipitation again here. So that's 5 o'clock. It's already starting to rain for Seattle, Tacoma, Olympia. Trick-or-treaters are just going out there and hitting the road. It's raining. Portland, maybe starting during trick-or-treating there, but Medford, Eugene, probably okay. Bend, Pendleton, Eastern Oregon, Ritzville, Moses Lake, trick-or-treaters okay. Spokane, okay. But look at by midnight there, 6/10 of an inch of rain for Seattle. That's a lot. It's up over half an inch. And we got additional systems rolling in early next week, additional systems after that. So yeah, we got some active weather coming up. We got king tides, we got big waves, we got a couple potential windstorms, we got atmospheric river rolling in here. Get out there and clean your drains off. You still got a little bit of time. You got till tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon to clear out those drains. Right now, I like both days, Thursday and Friday, for wave watching. But again, I got to fine tune that forecast here. We got to fine tune that over the next few days. $500 people in the chat. Welcome, everybody. We're going over this. I don't know. Somebody said this went all the way back to the Midway Islands. What gets, or Guam? What happens in Guam? You name the atmospheric river after whatever happens in Guam. If it was coming from the Hawaiian Islands, you would nickname that atmospheric river the Pineapple Express, probably. Or maybe the Poke Express, or whatever you wanted, the Poi Express. We're not looking at much lightning coming up here. I mean, there could be some thunderstorms in some of the wake of some of these storms, but we're not looking at a lot of lightning. There is some right now across the Gulf of Alaska back here behind the front. Chair is squeaking. Might be time to get a new chair. Yeah, big storm out there. And this kind of shows you the air mass. Very cold. Much warmer. You can see the big clash. And notice how the clash of those air masses goes right along that atmospheric river. The Spam Express from Hawaii, indeed. Thanks for the kind words, everybody. Be careful going up on your house with a ladder. I had to do that twice today. I actually screwed down the skylight today. I got it put up there and whatnot, but since we got wind coming this weekend, I had to go up tonight and I had to get the screws in there. The contractor left a handful of screws right next to the skylight, and I didn't even notice it. So all they did was go up there with my Phillips power drill and boom. It doesn't look like a big lightning potential next week. Thanks for the generosity, lightning expert. So we're not looking at a lot of lightning next week. But if that does change, continue to watch back. There is a chance it could change. But at this time of year, you usually get a few strikes, and that's kind of it. You usually don't get the big widespread thunderstorms here in the fall and the winter months. Yeah, there's lightning back in here, and I'll show you this right now. You can see the lightning back in here behind the frontal system there. But if you run through here, so this is ongoing, right? I'm going to bounce out to the Gulf of Alaska. We're going to do Oceanic. We're going to go to Pacific, and we're going to go to Gulf of Alaska. And you can kind of see where that lightning is right there. So there is that potential. It kind of shows up a little bit there. We go on into Saturday, maybe a little bit trying to sneak in here. Maybe some of Western BC, a lightning strike or two behind that frontal system. But it's not a lot. You notice that? It's just not that much. When the deeper low gets established next week, you can see some of that trying to approach the coastline, California, but again, no promises with that just yet. The Howley Express. Oh, I got to make Trevor here. I'm going to make you a moderator. Trevor Carsley should now be a moderator. Yeah, Jamaica took a pretty heavy hit from that hurricane. And if you are just joining us, this is that atmospheric river all the way back. Look at, there's Japan there, just south of Japan. Pretty crazy. You can see that on the Himawari satellite imagery. There's Russia way up here. There's Korea. The maritime continent down here, and our atmospheric river coming all the way across the Pacific Ocean. Not showing anything on the satellite imageries yet. Still just got some high clouds moving. Again, there's some lightning behind the front. This is what the atmospheric river looks like on the precipitable water. There's Saturday's little wrinkle. Notice that right there. That's going to bring some windy conditions here. Starting to get some better model agreement with that. In fact, that reminds me. Let's do this. Still not those little, see these little compact lows, just they are hard to predict. It only showed 40 on the last one for Seattle. I mean, 40 is not bad, but you still see there's some bigger ones kind of mixed in there. But it's kind of what I would expect with a low like this, because again, if this thing is just a little bit weaker, then you're not going to get much. If it's stronger, then you're going to get some of these bigger gusts. I didn't see what got said there. I missed it. I can't read all the chat coming in here. I do try to read it all, but I can't see it all. So thanks, my moderators. Yeah, I saw some of that also, Nathan Wolf, that the atmospheric river forecast for Oregon and California, that's the result of that low kind of moving down the coastline. And to see that best, we would go to northeast. We can also do it on here now, actually. So here is our current atmospheric river. Really can't miss it, right? I mean, it's just plowing right into the Pacific Northwest here. There's our system on Saturday, that low spinning up there. Moving right across the sweet spot. And then we go a bit further out, and then the potential for that next low out there, you can see it developing. Moving right across Pacific Northwest, some wind chances for that. And then look at that atmospheric river gearing up, trying to move up the Oregon coast, California coast, maybe. We'll see how that goes. We'll see how that trends over the next few days. Yeah, usually we're doing bad. You usually get the bigger winds when you get a big low pressure center, a deep low moving through British Columbia, kind of moving from west to east, and you drag that big pressure gradient across the region, and you can get some really powerful winds. You can get strong winds with our typical mid-latitude cyclones coming up the coastline as well, but yeah. It may be a while before you get snow down to the lower elevations. Of the Olympic Peninsula. Let me see this here. Might get a bit there. Looks like Hurricane Ridge picks up some snowfall. Yeah, just a little bit. Not too much. But yeah, we're not looking at a really cold pattern coming up just yet. I always continue to look for that and watch for it. So you'll hear about it probably here first, but nothing coming just yet. But you never know. Maybe we'll get cold by the time we get to Thanksgiving. Who knows? Wind is gusting right now in Cedar Hills, Oregon. Not as much as before, but it's pushing things around. Oh yeah, we watched War Games last night. What was it? Goose Island, Oregon. They went out there like in the second half of the movie. Found that kind of interesting. I didn't realize there was a place called Goose Island right there in the Columbia River. Yes, the mountains across Vancouver will do better as far as snowfall is concerned. Oops, went too far, too far. Wanted to go to Whistler. See Whistler not doing bad Friday night into Saturday. Ryan's leaving town, so yeah, we're gonna get some good weather. Then every time Ryan leaves town, and start get some interesting weather here across the Pacific Northwest. That was interesting. My winter forecast. Yeah, I don't really do long range winter forecasts like that. It's the Pacific Northwest is way too difficult to try to cover all the terrain features that we have here. There's so many different people that live in so many different elevations across just completely different climate zones that if I say something, it's not going to be like that for a lot of people. It's going to be like that for some, but not a lot. So if you make a broad brush winter forecast, it usually doesn't pan out too well. Yeah, usually in these week long Niña years, the Madden-Julian oscillation definitely has a more of an impact for sure. So that's the thing. When you get a week long Niña, we're probably going to get some snow or a couple shots at snow at some point for places like Seattle and Portland. But how much? I mean, because even in El Nino years, you can get pretty decent amounts of snowfall. But some El Nino years, you don't get any. Then La Nina years, you almost always get a snowfall, for example, at SeaTac, but it can be on the lower side as well. So it's such a tough thing to do. And really, I mean, it's fun to do it. And I don't, it's not like I'm out there slamming people that want to give winter forecasts or long range forecasts. It's fun to listen to and stuff. And people make predictions. It's something to talk about. It can be entertaining and stuff. And I do fantasy forecasts sometimes as well. So there's nothing really wrong with it, but you just got to understand that, you know, you're going to be checking back. If you have interest in the weather, you're going to need to be checking back on a daily basis. You can't just take something you hear, oh, we're going to get a cold February or March or something like that. And then you're just going to check out for the next few months and hope that that rings true. It's just not how things work. So you need to check back. You know, you live off in the back country, or you're a big mountain border, or you're a fisherman, a hunter, you know, you need to know what's coming, and you need to be checking back on the weather on a daily basis, because even what's coming Saturday is no slam dunk. La Nina just tells us that we're potentially going to be below normal temperature and above normal precipitation. Trying to catch up on the chat a little bit here. Let's see. Yes, that's a good winter forecast. We will get rain. That's an excellent one. Yeah, I haven't noticed that. It's interesting that it didn't pick up that lightning strike. I found it to be pretty accurate for the most part, but I imagine it probably does miss some. It is just an individual weather station. It's also, if that happens, go ahead and check stations around you to see if they picked it up as well. Yeah, that's what this channel is for. I'll give you pretty much the latest on what's likely to come in the next week, sometimes 10 days. But after that, you're really pushing it. You're getting convergent zone action. That's why Issaquah Sammamish, you're getting convergent. So winds will wrap around the Olympic Mountains. That air forces together, has nowhere to go but up. So that when it gets forced up, cools, condenses, and you get that convection. And that's why you got that lightning strike activity. That's the same convergence zone that brought snowfall to Snoqualmie Pass, caused a bunch of spinouts, and shut down the pass for a while. Yeah, snow levels will be, for some areas, are going to be up over 8,000 feet. So you're going to melt some of that snow. There's a good thing there's not a lot of it. And it shouldn't be a huge flooding event for the region. But that may not be the case if we get one of these atmospheric rivers as we go later on into November, December, January. The worst case scenario is when you get off into some of the winter months and you get a really big atmospheric river, very warm conditions over, like a fresh snowpack, and you melt some of that snow. That's the worst case scenario. I'm always hoping that's the case. I see, do you think Seattle will get a white Christmas or white Thanksgiving? I always hope for it, but there's really no way to tell as of right now. Yeah, that's another thing. Sometimes with weather stations, that's something you'll run into. Even with the most expensive weather station, if you're in a wind sheltered area, you're just not going to get that much wind. And so that's what kind of sucks about weather stations. It's kind of like I live in kind of this little bit of a depression here, and or my area is just not very windy, and maybe on the other side of the hill or in a better exposed area, they get better winds. but at my house, it just doesn't happen. Or sometimes you just have to set the weather station up in your backyard and you're sheltered by trees and things like that. So you're just not getting a lot of wind. But if you watch your weather station for long enough and you kind of go over your top wind speeds, then you can kind of gather something from those wind speeds. Like, hey, it got to 20 miles per hour at my house. That doesn't sound like a lot for SeaTac or for some other locations, but that is a big wind gust for my house. So you kind of learn your individual location. Bremlo Biscuits, thank you for the generosity in supporting the channel. So yeah, there's our atmospheric river, all the way back across the Pacific Ocean, all the way back on the Himawari satellite imagery, all the way back almost south of Japan. I guess I have to buy Ryan a coffee next time we go out. Come down next week and we'll go chase some waves. Oh, the weather modification people are going to freak out when they see this beam here, this Doppler radar hitting a terrain feature out there and coming across. I shouldn't joke about that. There's our atmospheric river on the European model. Windy system potentially on Saturday. There is our system right there. See that spin up right there? That could be problematic across some of Washington, maybe down into the Oregon coast. Then another system as we go on in through Monday. We got to watch that one. And then we get kind of a deep trough off the coastline. And this could coincide with the king tides through next week. Some big tides for the coastal areas and a big wave maker out there. That could get interesting. You got to remind me about the coffee. I will totally forget. Doppler. So yeah, we got some fun stuff going all the way on and through next week. You should totally joke about that. I don't want to make anybody mad or egg anybody on. Yeah, look at that little low flying across the region. I can't wait to see what tonight's model runs bring. But, oh yeah, it's a GFS seeing it. Let's take a look. Global forecast system. Here we go. Oh, the 0Z is already running. Check that out. But let's go back to the 18Z. I don't think I checked the GFS. It's got it. It's got it. It's a little weaker with it, but the GFS usually isn't as good as a European in the high resolution models and picking that stuff out, but it does have the system. Let's see what else it has. There's that next system. It moves that one into, it weakens that one as it approaches the coastline, but also it does have our wave maker as we go through next week. Watch out, folks. That'll be crazy. We'll get some crazy wave action going on with the king tides. That will be awesome. That will get me pumped up. Thanks, Dennis P, for the kind words. Thanks for checking back daily. And if you live in California, check out the California Weather Watch channel. What does the GFS show after that? Maybe, no, it's still got storms coming at us in the extended. That's a pretty potent low right there in the Vancouver Island. Way off into fantasy land. Then a ridge finally sets up. And we get a pattern change. Pacific North American negative. Big ridge. My goodness. Shut down the storm machine as we go through mid portion of November. Oh, then look at that one. That's kind of interesting. We'll get a little bit of a pattern change. Who knows? Don't believe that yet. In fact, let's look at the artificial intelligence because this one goes out 2 weeks as well. There goes Saturday's system. It has it. Monday's system, it drives that into the Oregon coast much weaker, but it has, yeah, the models are in pretty good agreement on that. Pretty good trough off our coastline. I mean, that would kick up some nice wave action for sure. Keeps us active through November 7th. Another deep low. Look at that one. We got to watch that one too. That's fantasy land, but it is there. And you continue to see some storm activity out there. Who knows? Roxy Dodge, good night. Much love from California. Yeah, I think I'm going to wrap up the chat now, you guys. I've been on for about an hour 45, so I think that's good for tonight. Yeah, check back tomorrow. We'll go over all this stuff. We'll look at all the new models to see just how windy it might be on Saturday and potentially on in through next week. We'll take a look at that big trough off the coastline, how it lines up with the king tides. And we'll go over some last minute precipitation timing starts as we go through the day tomorrow, Halloween. So I hope you guys are having a good night. We'll do this all again tomorrow. Watch my briefing if you would, please. And I will talk to you guys then.